Gymnastics is often seen as graceful and controlled, but the truth is, it's one of the most dangerous sports in the world. Behind the flips, splits, and perfect landings are moments of risk that most people never see. These are the most disturbing gymnastics deaths ever recorded, stories that expose the deadly side of a sport built on perfection. It was May 1988 in Tokyo, Japan. The crowd buzzed with excitement as gymnasts from around the world gathered for the World Sports Fair. Among them was a quiet, focused 15-year-old from the United States, Julissa Gomez. Julissa had earned her place through grit and grace. She was seen as a serious contender for the 1988 U.S. Olympic team, and Tokyo was supposed to be a stepping stone in her rising career. Born on November 4, 1972 in San Antonio, Texas, Julissa came from humble beginnings. Her parents, Otilia and Ramiro Gomez, were former farm workers who had worked tirelessly to give their daughter a shot at something bigger. Gymnastics had become Julissa's passion by the age of 5. She was a natural. By 10, she was already training under Bela Karolyi in Houston, climbing fast through the junior ranks. In 1986, she placed 4th in the all-around at the U.S. Championships. By the next year, she was representing the country on international stages. Her specialty, the vault. But that skill, the very one she poured her energy into, would soon become the most tragic part of her story. Behind her calm demeanor was an athlete under pressure. In 1987, Julissa made a tough decision to leave Karolyi's gym, trading his notoriously harsh coaching style for a more compassionate approach under Al Fong in Blue Springs, Missouri. Fong believed in her, supported her, but the Olympic dream was ticking louder every day. As the games drew closer, Julissa began training on the Yurchenko vault, a notoriously dangerous move that begins with a round-off onto a springboard, followed by a back handspring onto the vaulting horse. It's breathtaking when done right, but devastating when it goes wrong. And for Julissa, it often did. Her coaches noticed her struggle with the technique, her inconsistency, her hesitation, but the push never stopped. She had to compete with it. Everyone was watching. Everyone had expectations. And then came May 5th. During warm-ups for the vault final, Julissa sprinted toward the apparatus like she had done 100 times before. But in a split second, everything unraveled. Her foot slipped. Her takeoff faltered. And then, in front of horrified onlookers, she slammed headfirst into the vaulting horse. The gym fell silent. The impact was immediate and brutal. Julissa lay motionless. She had broken her neck. The doctors confirmed what everyone feared. She was paralyzed from the neck down. Coach Fong was there. He had trained her. And now he was watching his athletes suffer the unimaginable. He would later speak out, questioning the relentless pressure on young gymnasts to perform complex, high-risk skills without enough safety guarantees. Julissa was rushed to a hospital as her parents flew across the ocean from Texas, desperate to be by her side. Doctors worked to stabilize her, but a horrifying complication struck. The oxygen deprivation caused irreversible brain damage. Julissa slipped into a coma. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, only blink. Her story faded from headlines, but her parents never left her side. For 3 long years, they cared for their daughter in silence, holding on to hope that never came. And then, on August 8, 1991, Julissa passed away. She was just 18. Her death sent shockwaves through the gymnastics world. It wasn't just a tragedy, it was a wake-up call. The International Gymnastics Federation responded with sweeping changes. They made U-shaped springboard mats mandatory in competition. They replaced the old, narrow vaulting horse with a safer, wider vaulting table. And, most importantly, they instituted a new rule. Any gymnast attempting the Yurchenko vault without proper safety measures would receive a score of 0. Coach Fong would later say that gymnasts need to know the risks, but stay focused on their goals. It was a hard lesson, learned at an impossible cost. Julissa's teammates dedicated their season to her. Her parents urged other young athletes to keep chasing their dreams, just as their daughter had done. It was July 3, 1980, in Minsk, just 2 weeks before the Moscow Olympics. Inside the Minsk Palace of Sport, 20-year-old Elena Mukhina stood alone under the fluorescent lights, preparing for yet another grueling training session. Only 2 years earlier, Elena had shocked the world. In 1978, at the World Championships in Strasbourg, she claimed the all-around gold, defeating legends like Nadia Comaneci and Nellie Kim. A star was born. Soviet pride soared, and Elena was suddenly no longer just a gymnast, she was a national symbol. But behind the glitter of medals and state praise was a darker truth. Elena was trapped inside a brutal system that demanded perfection at any cost. Her body was already breaking down. A year before, she had broken her leg, a serious injury that should have kept her out for months. But in the Soviet sports machine, recovery wasn't a priority. Her cast was removed too early. She was forced to drop weight fast. The pain, irrelevant. The weakness, ignored, because all that mattered was the Olympics. And then came the final blow, the Thomas Salto, a tumbling pass so dangerous it was designed for male gymnasts. Few women even dared to attempt it. Elena didn't want to. She told her coach, Mikhail Klemenko, again and again, it's too risky, but her protests were brushed aside like dust. Klemenko insisted she learn it. If she refused, she knew what would happen. She'd be replaced. So that day, July 3rd, she ran, she tumbled, and as she began the Thomas Salto, she under-rotated. In a flash, her chin slammed into the floor with a sickening crack. The gym fell silent. She wasn't moving. Elena had broken her neck. She was instantly paralyzed from the neck down. As the news spread behind closed doors, panic set in, not about her injury, but about the image of Soviet dominance. They told the media she had fallen from a balance beam. Others said it happened during a vault run. Anything but the truth. Anything but the fact that she had been forced to attempt a move she had warned might kill her. They blamed Elena, called her careless. But those who knew her knew the truth. She had seen this coming. She had begged for caution. In one of her rare interviews, she said quietly, it was going to happen. I told them I could break my neck, and she did. Elena didn't lash out in anger. She didn't name names. Instead, she exposed the system that saw athletes not as people, but as tools for national glory. Victories were more important than lives, she said. She didn't even fully blame her coach. To her, he was just another gear in the machine, following orders, doing what was expected. But the impact of her injury rippled beyond her own tragedy. Nellie Kim, a teammate and fierce competitor, said she was shaken to her core. Why was she being made to do something she wasn't ready for? Kim asked. After witnessing the cost firsthand, she quietly retired after the 1980 Games. Elena would receive medals later, ceremonial honors like the Order of the Badge of Honor and the Olympic Order, but none of it erased the years of suffering. None of it gave her back her body, her youth, or her dream. She endured 26 years in that state, and on December 22, 2006, she passed away at age 46. It was November 8, 2019 in Hampton, Connecticut. Inside the familiar walls of the New Era Gymnastics facility, 20-year-old Melanie Coleman was doing what she had done for most of her life, training on the uneven bars. To anyone watching, it would have looked like just another routine practice. It only takes one misstep to change everything. Melanie slipped. In an instant, a fall turned catastrophic. She hit the mat with a force that immediately signaled something was very wrong. Paramedics were called. Her coach, Thomas Alberti, who had trained her for nearly a decade, was one of the first to reach her. He knew every part of her technique, every step of her routine. And now he was watching the unthinkable unfold before his eyes. Melanie was rushed to Yale New Haven Hospital. The doctors tried everything, but the spinal injury was devastating. 2 days later, on November 10th, Melanie Coleman was gone. She was only 20. The news broke hearts, not just in Connecticut, not just in the gymnastics community, but across the country. Because this wasn't some reckless dare or a risky new stunt. This was a standard training session. Melanie was a seasoned, elite-level gymnast. Her fall was called a freak accident, one of those terrifying moments that makes even the safest spaces feel fragile. She grew up in Milford, Connecticut, where gymnastics wasn't just a sport, it was a family tradition. Her mother had competed. Her sisters had competed. One of them was even her teammate at Southern Connecticut State University. Melanie was following in their footsteps. Earlier that same year, she'd been named a Scholastic All-American by the Women's Collegiate Gymnastics Association, an award that recognized both her academic excellence and athletic dedication. She was studying to become a nurse, just like her older sisters, and even with a demanding college schedule, she still found time to teach young gymnasts, children as young as 2 years old, at the very same gym where she trained. They looked up to her. They mimicked her every move. For many of them, Melanie was their first role model. Her coach, Thomas Alberti, later said, she didn't care about winning. She wanted everyone to succeed. He still couldn't understand how such a tragedy could happen under normal, safe conditions. The gym was trusted, the equipment sound, but sometimes life doesn't give you a reason. It just leaves you shattered. Melanie's family was devastated. Her mother, Susan, shared through tears, "We spent every day together for the past 20 years. We're going to leave an empty space in our photos for her." And yet, even in death, Melanie was still giving. Her family later revealed she had registered as an organ donor, quietly, without needing recognition. And because of that one choice, she gave others a second chance at life. In the days that followed, her community rose up around her. A GoFundMe campaign raised over $65,000 to support her family. Messages of love poured in from across the country. Coaches and athletes who had never even met her posted tributes. It was July 26, 1994, in Kansas City, Missouri. Christy Renee Henrich was just 22 years old when her body finally gave out. Her organs shut down, one by one, unable to recover from years of damage. And just like that, one of the most talented gymnasts America had ever produced was gone. But this wasn't a story of a single tragic moment. It was a slow, painful unraveling. Christy had always been a fighter. Born July 18, 1972, she was 4 feet, 10 inches, but powerful, graceful, and fiercely determined. By the age of 14, she was competing at the national level, earning her place on the U.S. national gymnastics team just 2 years later. Her rise was fast, and by 1989, she was one of the brightest stars in the sport. She represented the United States at the World Championships in Stuttgart, helping the team secure a 4th-place finish. On the uneven bars, she came heartbreakingly close to a medal. Her future was full of possibility. The Olympics were calling, but behind the smiles, behind the glittering routines, something darker was taking root. At the 1988 World Championships in Budapest, a judge pulled Christy aside and delivered a comment that would forever alter the course of her life. Lose weight if you want to make the Olympic team. She weighed just 95 pounds at the time, so she tried to, desperately. Her eating grew more restrictive. Her workouts became more intense. The pressure became unbearable, but still she smiled. Still she performed. No one could see the war being waged inside her body. Coach Al Fong, who had already endured the trauma of Julissa Gomez's accident just years earlier, began to notice the signs. In 1989, he confronted Christy. He begged her to get help. He arranged meetings with doctors, nutritionists, professionals who might be able to pull her back from the edge. But the damage was already deep. Christy didn't want to stop. She didn't want to lose her dream. She was still chasing perfection, even as her body was fading. Her weight dropped to 47 pounds. By 1990, her body could no longer carry her. She left elite gymnastics the following January. The crowd's applause had quieted, but the voice in her head hadn't. She still wanted to return, still believed she could overcome it. But her body, now so fragile, couldn't keep up with her spirit. The next 4 years were a cycle of hope and heartbreak, hospitalizations, psychiatric care, a carousel of doctors. By the summer of 1994, her condition had grown critical. She was admitted to Research Medical Center in Kansas City, her weight unchanged, her organs failing. For more than 2 weeks, she remained there, but her body had nothing left to give. On July 26th, 8 days after her 22nd birthday, Christy Henrich passed away. Her death was a shockwave, not just for gymnastics, but for all of sports. It forced a reckoning that had been avoided for too long. The judges, the coaches, the commentators, all had to face what the pursuit of perfection had cost. For once, it was no longer possible to look away, and things began to change. Programs were created to help young athletes understand nutrition and mental health. Coaches were trained to spot warning signs. Television networks stopped announcing gymnasts' weights on air. The sport, once obsessed with appearance, was slowly forced to confront its obsession. It wasn't enough to win. It had to be safe to try.
Very powerful young lady. She was the China Games gold medalist on this event. Huge vault.
It was July 1998, New York City pulsing with the energy of the Goodwill Games. Inside the arena, 17-year-old Chinese gymnast Sang Lan stood poised at the edge of the vault runway. She had done this 1,000 times before. Just a year earlier, she was China's national vault champion. This moment was meant to be another stepping stone, a routine warm-up, a simple timer vault, just muscle memory and air. Nothing dangerous, nothing unusual, but in a split second, everything changed. As Sang sprinted forward and launched into the air, something was wrong. Mid-flight, she lost control. There was no time to correct her form, no way to adjust. She came crashing down, head first. The sound of the impact silenced the room. When she didn't move, panic set in. Sang was rushed to Nassau University Medical Center. Emergency spinal surgery followed. Doctors worked to realign her spine and stabilize her shattered body, but the damage was already done. Sang Lan was now paralyzed from the chest down. Her legs, her independence, her dream of gymnastics, all gone. In the chaos that followed, a chilling accusation began to surface. Sang, still in her hospital bed, claimed the fall wasn't just a tragic accident. She said a coach from another team had stepped into the vault area moments before her attempt, removing the safety mat without warning, without telling anyone. A sudden, reckless act, one that would leave her broken. But when she tried to speak, officials dismissed her. They said she was confused, that her mind was clouded from trauma. The headlines focused on her injury. The world sent flowers. Celebrities offered their support. Leonardo DiCaprio, Celine Dion, even Christopher Reeve. But as the lights dimmed, Sang found herself living a different kind of nightmare. While recovering in the U.S., she was placed in the care of K.S. Liu and Gina Hu Hung, a Chinese-American couple who promised to support her through recovery. At first, they were her lifeline. But that lifeline began to twist. Sang later revealed that they had taken control of nearly every aspect of her life. They restricted her speech, blocked her from speaking openly about the incident, and allegedly withheld care they had promised to provide. Her medical needs were left unmet. Her voice silenced again. In 1999, she returned to China. There, the government hailed her as a national symbol of courage, a face of resilience. She lit the Olympic torch in 2008, hosted television shows, smiled for cameras. But behind that public image, Sang was still struggling, still hurting. She said the same institutions that once held her up had slowly let her fall again. Her therapy grew infrequent. Her legs weakened further. Every step forward was uphill and lonely. Then, in 2011, 13 years after that fateful vault, Sang spoke out. She filed a lawsuit in the United States naming AOL, Time Warner, USA Gymnastics, TIG Insurance, and the very couple who had once cared for her. The accusations were staggering. She claimed the fall was avoidable, the aftermath mishandled, and her trust betrayed. She demanded $1.8 billion in damages. But this wasn't just about money, it was a battle for truth. Sang said her caretakers had spread lies about her, tried to manipulate public opinion, and even acted inappropriately while she was most vulnerable. A police report was filed, allegations piled up, and public opinion fractured. Some called her brave, finally reclaiming her voice. Others accused her of being bitter, or worse, manipulated. But Sang stood firm. After all these years, she wasn't chasing pity. She wanted accountability. Her legal case became tangled in delays and limitations, but she never let it fade. Her fight was no longer just personal. It was universal. For every athlete who felt used, for every young girl told to stay quiet, for every victim who'd been buried under silence and shame,